Hello, Internet, and welcome to our podcast.
Where we talk about movies and pop culture, and despite 4 years of film school, what I don't know about movies and cinema will shock you.
I know too much. It puts me in real danger.
Tweet us and tell us what movies you'd like us to talk about on the Whiskey and Sweet Tea Show at The Wast Show. That's the W-A-S-T Show.
I'm Whiskey.
I'm Sweet Tea.
Let's do this.
So this week's movie is going to be Onward.
What? Onward?
Onward?
What's that?
Did you not see it? I only assigned I think you assigned. I think that was your pick.
That's a baby movie.
Okay. Anybody who says that, I have said this, and I've actually made people say this. Don't ever discount movies marketed towards children as be able to be as well made or have as good of a message as adult movie. That's one of my big things right there, because they can.
If you couldn't tell, guys, T has some strong feelings about this one, and I'm actually very curious to hear what you thought of this week's film.
So I went in to see it, actually I went and see this at the Draft House where I had my separation beside me, which didn't really work because the girl 2 seats over from me, but her purse next to me, she was just always leaning over to that seat. But anyway.
My complaints are contagious. Everyone's going to tweet at us if you agree with my rant about having people sit right next to you when there's an empty theater. Anyway, continue.
So, I went in not really knowing anything about the movie. Like, I knew that it was coming out. I hadn't seen any of the trailers. I don't know. I never see movie trailers for stuff anymore, and it makes me sad. And people are probably like, "How did you miss it?" I heard that it was coming out from you. I didn't really know that it was even coming out.
I'm like the opposite. Anytime I've got like downtime, I will like be on my phone watching trailers.
See, I guess that's because I guess you like look up trailers and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I tend to like really only focus on them when they're like played before something. Yeah. Although I do get obsessed with certain trailers. You remember for the longest time we'd have to watch the Birds of Prey trailer before every movie.
You guys have no idea how much he liked that movie. Anyway,
everybody go see that.
But no, I'm ravenous. Like, I watch trailers all the time, mostly just because I'm kind of trying to seek out what might be interesting or what I've been doing it since high school. Like, I think I'm just a product of the age of the internet where like as a kid it's like, oh my god, like I as a kid I never wanted to miss the trailers for movies. And now you can just look them up. Like, most of the time when I go to movies now, I've like seen all the trailers that they're playing.
Yeah.
So it's a weird time. But anyway,
so I went into that, not really knowing what to expect. And at first I was kind of like, again, because it's weird. It's like seeing trailers, you become dependent on that to kind of get you into the movie. So like the first couple minutes, I was kind of like, wait, what's going on? And once we got into the character of Ian, we got into the character of the mother and the story of Barley. I was hooked immediately, and I used to not, and I really liked the idea of the idea that magic is something that's not real. It's just kind of been forgotten, and to me that was a very interesting sort of take on it. Not that no one's ever seen magic before, so clearly it's not real. No, magic is just the least efficient way to do something, which, as we see in the movie, that's not the case. Also, again, sorry, spoilers ahead.
Yeah, so if this is your first time watching our show, it's less about a review so much, and we're just talking about the movie.
We just talk about the movie, give our thoughts.
It's honestly better if you've seen the movie. We will tell you our thoughts and opinions and whether it's a good or bad movie.
In our opinions.
But going forward, we're actually going to have you guys vote on what we watch. So ideally, it will be something that you have seen too, so that you can vibe with our opinions or not.
Our big thing on this show is that there is no right or wrong way to feel about a movie. So if you think everything we're saying is stupid, that's awesome. If you're vibing like he said, that's awesome.
I am always 100% more interested if someone has an interesting opinion on something, because if someone is just echoing the same thing over and over, this movie's great, this movie's bad, it's boring. And we're hopefully entertaining you guys out there. That's what this show is about. So I don't really care as much about like whether someone thinks something is a cinematic classic. I'd much rather have someone give me a weird opinion on how The Godfather is actually about
Yeah.
I don't know, like
It's about repressed homosexuality.
Something like that.
I like that.
Like it's
that is now what it's about.
it's but yeah. So anyway,
it gets like I said, one of my things is just about I really like how to me the best kind of movies are movies that make you feel.
Oh, and Pixar,
that's a feel factory.
If you aren't, they get off to making you cry.
Yeah, they really
it's
do.
Really like stuff. This we'll get into my opinion. I want to hear a little bit more about yours, but yeah, no, it is absurd how easily I start. The Pixar movie that will make me cry is Up's opening.
Yes.
Without any doubt. Like that always gets me.
That's basically a meme at this point. This is a meme online. Everyone will say opening of Up still a better love story than Twilight.
It's ridiculous though, because like even in movies where I don't feel like I'm going to have an emotional connection to the plot, this one included, it chokes me up. It is ridiculous, and it's like it could be the most. Incredibles 2 had moments like that.
Yeah, it did.
It's absurd. Like anyway. So
the best kind of movies, in my opinion, are the ones that make you feel something. And this is a movie that definitely made me, feel, especially going into it not knowing anything about it. I had no yes and no about what was going on. But at the end of the movie, I was, in tears. Actually, I texted Whiskey on my way out of the theater, and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't stop crying for the last 15 minutes.
And if you didn't listen to our last episode, we have a strict do not talk to each other about the
I
episode.
did kind of break that with that, but
I had to like put my phone down because this guy was having a moment.
I didn't have to went to Target.
Experience. Yeah.
But it was that ending, the whole ending where he talks about when he realizes that the father he's been chasing has been there all along. Oh my God, I could not. I really could not. That was so beautiful. It's like he's crossing it off and he realizes he's done all these things. He's had somebody to guide him through these things, to share out life with, to teach him how to drive.
Well, this is a great movie to talk about this week because there's so much stuff going on. I will echo something you just said. One thing I feel like, especially in fantasy movies, that is uber important to the point where you can
not
tell...
a paid sponsorship.
Oh man. Anyway, when you're writing a film or a story or whatever with magic or crazy things going on, you got to have like rules or world or whatever, and there's so many films that do it poorly. The most recent example of someone not fully implementing the world into their story. Did you watch Bright, Nico, on Netflix?
I don't think I did now.
So it is a similar plot to Onward. Well, not plot. It's a similar setup. Basically, it's fairy tale creatures existing in a modern world. That's what Onward is, but Bright did it just a few years ago, and it does not make sense. Mm-hmm. Like, you see, like, orcs wearing, like, Raiders jerseys, and it's like, do the Raiders exist? Is this Los Angeles? Like... And it's the simplest thing. Another writer, I feel like, who gets this perfectly. I'd almost argue that she is better at world building than she is at constructing a story. Don't at me. I'm not trying to diss J.K. Rowling, but Harry Potter is the perfect example of, you can tell a story about a boy wizard going to school, but what makes it interesting is how the world functions.
Yeah.
Do wizards have jobs? Do they pay taxes? How do they commute? These are things that are talked about in Harry Potter, this, children's book, essentially. And it's done better than most adult films about, like, fantastical things.
Yeah.
And that's what... And you touched on this with Onward, but I have to emphasize it, too. The world building's perfect, and it's actually a really, really apt metaphor for... our society, because essentially the way it works, assuming you haven't seen the movie, magic used to exist, but science also was like invented and became more convenient than using magic, because with magic you have to use your emotions, you have to concentrate, you have to do all of this, you have to remember incantations. With the invention of the light bulb, once it's set up, you just flip a switch. Way easier than doing the spell. That's essentially the premise of Onward, is like how we've lost touch with what was important about what magic was used for.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's very funny. Like, I feel like if you're an adult who's looking for a movie to take your kid to, you will laugh at a lot of this because it's so funny. Like, and they even draw attention to it. One of the characters is a centaur who's a police officer, and as a centaur, why would you need to, you know, drive a car?
Yeah,
but he drives a car.
He's a cloven animal, like you know, basically like almost like a horse. That's his whole thing.
And even in the film, they say like centaurs can run up to 70 miles an hour. So it really is just like a why, you know. But that's like the perfect metaphor for the metaphor in the movie.
Yeah,
is how here's this guy, this character who could run as fast as a car, and yet he's still using a car because it's more convenient than getting exercise. And
well, one of the things that I like to like about, you know, that whole message, that whole kind of, you know, plot of, you know, magic being more, and not the least most convenient thing. Like, you can think about it more along the lines of, you know, the way culture is, you know, there's some, you know, especially like older generations who do feel like the culture of, you know, of their people, like as a Hispanic person, you know, I don't know a ton about my Mexican culture. So you see, but you can kind of almost look at it that way, from the way that, you know, culture is kind of being in a way phased out, because it's just much easier to just adapt to whatever the current.
That is, you know, an interesting take that I never thought of before. That's a very apt, and that's another thing, very minor, but something that was kind of interesting is it was a very diverse cast of monsters and stuff. There's like a troll or an ogre that's like disabled. I'm not sure like if the correct way of saying it, but he's got crutches.
Which one? I'm trying to remember.
He's the purple one in the Letterman jacket.
In the Letterman jacket.
At the high school.
At the high school. Okay. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
But yeah, like, you see a wide cast of, like, diverse... It's interesting. They decided to put in some stuff like that.
But it never felt... What I liked about it, it didn't feel pandering or like a token character.
No, and it also didn't call attention to itself. The fact you couldn't even remember what I was talking about.
Exactly, yeah. It's like once you describe it, I'm like, okay, I remember that character now.
And the characters are magnificent. That was something else about the film. The world building's great. I wouldn't say it's as in-depth as something like Harry Potter, but, you know, with the story there was effort put into it. How does this work? You know, do they use freeways? How do cars work? Like, there was thought put into it.
There's that scene in that movie that's like a perfect example. And it almost kind of reminded me of there was a scene in Cars where they talk about the highways that flow with the land, and then the interstate that just cuts right through it to save like 20 minutes of driving or something. Yeah. And then they sort of had that in this movie too. They had the expressway to Ravens Point, or the path of peril, you know, to there. And it was kind of, it's very interesting, and that really is kind of a metaphor for movies as a whole. It's about the journey, not the destination. Just that whole idea of, instead of, you know, just trying to get there, you know, going through the different, you know, how you get there is what's more interesting.
So I think we're gonna change this a little bit because I'm very curious. Amidst the messages you were sending me last night, I could tell very, very clearly that you had a favorite character. So I'm gonna. Who was your favorite character?
My favorite character was Barley. Barley was awesome. He's kind of this happy-go-lucky guy who kind of he figured out, you know, through tragedy, you know, how to basically be the best version of himself. And he talks about how, you know, one of his worst memories, he talked about on 4 memories of his father in the movie, and the one that got to me, he talked about the 4th one is when he was too scared to go in and say goodbye to his dad when his dad was passing away, and so he talks about how he made up his mind then to never to be afraid of anything like that again. And that to me, that just added such a level of depth to his character. You know, he cares, he sacrifices, and, you know, the fact that we find out towards the end, he's basically, and you really don't even think about it until the characters, his brother Ian is thinking back. He really has basically become a father figure. He was an amazing character. I could not get it. I wouldn't say I would want to see, you know, like a Barley movie, but I was the most interesting. To me, he was the most interesting, and he was the character that I kind of rooted for the most.
We all know you want to see a Barley movie.
We all want to see a Barley.
I on the other hand, he was lovable. I thought he was a great character. My personal favorite was the Manticore.
Okay, yeah, Manticore was awesome.
That whole, God, I love it when Disney pokes fun at itself, and having. I would say her restaurant isn't so much making fun of Disney as much as it's like making fun of it felt to me like a mix between like TGI Fridays and Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, I totally got a Chuck E. Cheese vibe in there.
But the way that the mascot, if he had so he asks to see the Manticore, and because it's like this very family friendly thing, the Manticore that they think they're asking for is like a dude in a suit.
Yeah, basically a stuffed. Not stuffed Manticore, but yeah.
Even though the actual Manticore is like the owner and manager of the restaurant, they have like this stupid costume. But I loved, if you've ever been to Disneyland, he was doing the same thing, like making like little giggles and like tickling them.
Yes!
I was just my God. I love it when Disney pokes fun at itself, and I definitely think they were doing that, at least with the mascot, not with the whole restaurant. But I felt like the heart and soul of the movie goes with Barley and Ian. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the Manticore was a great character for kind of the other message of the movie about like convenience and stuff. But because here's this very powerful, awesome creature who could be doing anything essentially, and it I guess is immortal because she's like hundreds of years old, at least in the movie. She used to go on adventures.
Yeah,
it's so I'm guessing she's just like she will not age. But here she is like managing this dumb restaurant and getting stressed out over all this stuff because it was more convenient than having this dirty, scary place for adventures to come, and like maybe she didn't make enough money or whatever. But I loved that, and I loved that Ian and Barley's mom has like a mom.
Yes.
I love the fact that they had like kind of a parallel road trip going on where it's just like they become like besties.
Yes,
and then like the Manticore and the mom were like my favorite in the movie. Well, they were just super
that
funny.
Whole side trip with the mom, I love that because it really brings home the idea of moving forward in life.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's basically everybody has their own quests to that they have to face to find themselves or find their place in the world. Obviously in the movie it was an actual quest that got them there. The whole idea of the mothers moving on from to a new man, a new centaur in this case, and then we have Ian trying to move out of the shadow of his father. Barley kind of moving more
self-confidence.
It's basically about self-confidence, but at first it took me a while. I was thinking about it after, like, really, why is it called Onward? I mean, Onward is obviously it's a word in the movie that they use for the car instead of putting it in drive. He has a little sticky note on there, putting it in Onward because he talks like he's in like a fairy tale, like Renaissance fair. It's awesome.
Barley needs to be a history major.
He needs to be a history major, and he also needs to like
he's like out of school, by the way. If you haven't seen the movie, he's basically a college dropout, and the whole movie I was just like, dude, all this magic stuff you're into is like medieval history in our world. Why don't you just study history? Like
I can see him teaching.
You get like a PhD. It'd be easy for you because you're a nerd for it anyway.
PhD in magical history and spending his weekends at Renaissance fairs. I could totally see it.
That's a good, I wonder if they have Renaissance. I'm sure they do, but I feel like magic in that universe is probably handled differently than here because it's like everyone knows about it, so it's not as
magic is real here too.
It's like
I believe in magic.
If you've ever met like a history major who's into some weird niche period in history, I feel like that's essentially what Barley is.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make him any less lovable, but I'm sure like to us from our universe, like it all seems much more cool. It's a lot easier to relate to Barley, but I feel like in their world it's like some guy being really nerdy about like 11th century Jerusalem or something. It's like it's probably far less interesting to most people. But as I guess we'll go into, I had kind of a hot take leaving this because it's as good as Pixar movies are. Here's a way of putting it. Imagine like every meal in your life is just like the greatest steak dinner. Like the first time it's delicious, but the more and more you get of it, it's harder to even really like pick up the flavors and stuff.
Yeah.
And Pixar is like too big to fail at this point. Like I left the movie enjoying myself. And I especially enjoyed the fact it's an original movie. Especially these last few years, it's just been constant sequels. Finding Dory, Incredibles 2. Coco, Coco was like the only thing
I loved Coco
recently that's been like original. So I kind of was like thinking, because I really enjoyed this movie, but I as I like pondered it, I was like, do I like it because it's that good, or do I like it because it's original? And then I started thinking about like how many like good movies Pixar puts out, and I came to a bizarre conclusion that I'm curious what your thoughts are. How weird would it be if Pixar actually tried to make a bad movie on purpose? Like a Room.
It's interesting to me if people would still flock around and find some sort of mastery in it.
Yeah, actually, almost it would be kind of a neat experiment. I'm sure the shareholders at Disney would be like, "Hey, if we release a bad movie on purpose and people still think it's a masterpiece."
It's like that joke that gets passed around online. People always talking about Kanye West will put out a blank CD, and his audience and his fans will be like, "I can hear the music."
Emperor's New Clothes, for sure. And yeah, I'm not even saying this to be like a downer or a contrarian or anything, because I genuinely, it's getting to a point where it's hard for me to even get excited anymore. Like, I don't know. I remember like when Toy Story came out and it was such a new thing. Like even like the 3D animation was crazy, and Soul is coming out in a few months and that looks really awesome. And it's getting to a point where it's just like I'm almost like numb to it at this point, and I love it. It's really great. Like that it's coming out, and especially like for parents with kids, it's great that there's like at least a consistently good thing to show your kids. I'm just like, what could they even do to stir up the pot a little bit, or like do something more? I don't know. As I said, it was a bizarre conclusion.
I had no interest in seeing Toy Story 4 when that came out.
Gosh.
I had no interest in seeing it. People were like, "Oh,
It's fine."
I was just like, we just had Toy Story 3 years ago. I was kind of just like, I don't know, like I enjoyed Toy Story, but that wasn't one of the characters I like really like super connected with. So just to have 4 of them come out, and I was just like, do we really need a 4th one?
That is and that's kind of the same thing I was feeling with Finding Dory, and like. I don't know. It's
well, Finding Dory. I understand it's a sequel, but
you did not need to know.
We didn't need to know that, but it to me wasn't as bad as having 4 Finding Nemos.
No, for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's the thing. I'm at least happy they're coming out with new things, and I am very curious to see how they're going to raise the bar over time. Because that is as I said, when I thought about Onward after watching it, I just, my head was in like this weird place where I'm like, do I even feel anything anymore? With how good these are. Like I'm rarely surprised when I see something and it like makes me emotional. I don't know. I think I'm just a weirdo though. Tweet me. Let me know what you think. But I'm like one of those types of people. I kind of like with this show, I'd rather see something new than something I've seen a bunch of times. And that's not to diss Onward. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It's just and the ending that T was talking about, I did not see that coming. I thought there was going to be teary moments about the father. I did not think
when he's watching Barley talk to his father only seeing the back of his head. Oh, I mean, it was heartbreaking. Oh my gosh,
it's really good.
That ending was not like a cheap like pull for tears. It was,
and that's where I'm having trouble even articulating what I mean here, because I am still surprised by Pixar movies, and I'm still they get me every time. Tweet at us for sure, guys. Like let us know, because I'm wondering if I'm alone here. Like what would you want to see Pixar make a bad movie on purpose? And if you're thinking of like where they could go from here, or do you even feel the way I do about like it's so consistently good that you're almost like numb to it at this point. Like and I feel like some people kind of just automatically go to these movies.
I mean, arguably Pixar already has made a bad movie. Do we not remember?
Made two.
Do you remember? Wasn't one of them The Good Dinosaur?
Yeah, but I would say that their worst movie ever, regardless of ticket sales, is Cars 2.
Yeah.
I would say I do not care if that was successful. That was worse.
My mom has this thing with Nathan Fillion, and I guess he was a voice of a character in that movie. So because that she saw it, other than that, I don't think any of us would have seen it.
The Good Dinosaur would make for an episode all by itself. I have seen it, and it is... I wanted to like it. It is unfortunately an absolute mess. I think if they had left it in the development oven for like another 2 years, I think it could have been really good. But because they like rushed it out, from the stories I heard they were using a B team. I don't know all of the details, but there were complications to that one, and it's a shame because I think it was an interesting idea for a movie. But yeah, no, I'm not saying Pixar has not made a bad movie. I'm saying what if they made a bad movie on purpose, or tried to, or at least just tried to do something more creative than they already have been. I have trouble even articulating what I mean because it makes it sound like they aren't pushing boundaries. They are, for sure. I'd be interested to see them do something truly unique.
I mean, to be fair, I know that Pixar and the Disney and Pixar are, but they're inherently different. But because this is like the first, even though like I said I hadn't really seen any trailers or anything about it, if I had like gone back and seen a trailer, again I'm not sure, but I feel like this would be the first Disney movie I'd be excited to see in like a long time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I am with you there.
Another thing that I liked about it, I loved, because I had a close friend who was really into D&D and really into like Pathfinder and stuff, and so I loved all the ways of giving it of like, it takes it seriously but not in like an obnoxious way. It was actually interesting. I kind of liked that they picked that up. I thought that was cool.
Barley, I could easily see being BFFs with Barley in real life, like chilling in his beat up old van.
Guinevere,
like
by the way,
D&D,
Guinevere
playing Magic the Gathering.
Yes,
like going like camping in Guinevere. Like
Guinevere 1, I will say, is a non-speaking character in that movie.
Yeah, man.
When they crashed her, I cried. That was the first set of tears.
Barley is like this sort of dude I want to hang out with in real life. He's
yeah.
But leading into beyond my weird, crazy thoughts about the movie, apparently it hasn't been doing box office wise like very well, and I would say I think it has to do with all the stuff going on right now, because I don't think people are going to movies, especially with what you were talking about earlier in the show with apparently them cutting the capacity of films and stuff like that. It's, I think, going to hurt even good movies like Onward.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me today that, this is the second worst boxing Pixar ever had, the first one being Good Dinosaur. And I'm like, I really don't think that's a fair comparison.
Yeah, plus The Good Dinosaur came out during the holidays. It came out around Christmas time. It was intended to be their big Christmas blockbuster. So the fact that it was released at a time when little kids and their parents are going to see movies and it bombed, it's not comparable to March.
Yeah.
And it's also not comparable when everyone is panicking over a virus.
Yeah. So
I don't think people are seeing... I honestly don't think ticket sales are going to be... Unless this blows over in a week or something, which isn't going to happen, people are going to be panicking for like 4 weeks at least. And hopefully this doesn't creep into the summer blockbuster thing.
Like I said, I'm not excited to see Wonder Woman 1984 pushed back.
Yeah, I really hope it doesn't, but it could. But for the foreseeable future, I think this is going to affect ticket sales, period.
Yeah,
like,
it's just going to.
Like, when you were told to not be in a populated area, not to touch anything, like, what's worse than a movie theater as far as that goes? Like, I honestly...
I mean, they've done like 60-minute specials or 2020 about how dirty movie theaters are without a virus, and so you just pass it on. It's just like, why would you want to go at all?
I don't know. People are like talking about that. I was actually on the phone with my sister, and she was talking about it as if it was a bomb, and I was like, really? But it was #1 at the box office.
Yeah.
And that's I think is more of an indicator of things than the actual amount of money. What are
people willing to essentially risk, getting sick to see?
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, I feel like that ranking is more important because like money fluctuates, and that too, like if people enjoyed it as much as we did, I can see Blu-ray sales going up. Although that's an interesting, we were talking about streaming earlier, and that's like with Disney Plus having like all of it on that, it makes me wonder how that is going to affect.
Well, and what I've wondered
then it could actually be a very low grossing film. Like what if it doesn't recover because of this virus outbreak, and then it's just released onto Disney Plus, and then no one has any reason to buy it because it's on there. That's an interesting thing.
I mean, I'm probably one of the few people out there that still goes out and buys movies. I have this thing, my dad is always like, everything's available online. No, it's not. And two, it's just, I kind of like the idea of not being at the mercy of whatever the algorithm says is hot right now to put out there. I kind of like the ability of being like, I like this movie, I own it, I can just throw it on.
I'm the same way, but that's the problem. You and I are fans. I'm talking about average consumer moms or consumer moms. Trademark.
or
trademark consumer moms.
Let's be inclusive. Consumer parents.
Consumer moms, consumer dads.
Consumer gender non-conforming adults.
Absolutely. All types of consumer parents.
Exactly, yeah.
They're not going to think, they're going to be like, oh, my kid won't shut up about this movie. I'm going to buy this one because that way I can just put it on repeat, and then
I can just throw it. I can just put the Disney Plus app in front of them, and they'll be fine.
Exactly. Or like that's the only way I see. Again, it depends on how Disney handles things, or any of these streaming platforms. But unless I feel like most kids will have like one movie that's like their favorite movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I knew someone who, when they were a kid, it was The Wizard of Oz over and over again. For me as a kid, I definitely remember it was like the original Star Wars trilogy, just something where you wore out that VHS tape. And
I was a weird kid. I was your first grader who was obsessed with Gone with the Wind. But we all have movies,
and I think kids are the same way. So I feel like it's going to be interesting going forward, seeing how the whole streaming age plays into this, because I feel like parents, for the most part, are just going to put on the Disney Plus app. Yeah. But when that kid has, like, if it's Onward or Coco or, like, whatever movie that it's just, I feel like most kids, it's Frozen. Mm-hmm. That's the one I always see little kids, like, are obsessed about. But I feel like that is where you're going to get your Blu-ray sale.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, this kind of thing that I like is you won't really know which kids' movies are really the best until that generation of kids grows up, and what movies they want to share with their kids, or they want to put on when they're not feeling great. They want to put something on, and those are the movies that you can really tell are the favorites. Like Frozen might be like popular right now, but when that girl or boy grows up, in 20 years, they may not be one they put on that often. Like I said, it might be the one they watch 2 or 3 times, but for some reason it had enough of an impact on them. You know what I'm trying to say?
I think I know what you mean. I'm talking about little kids, but I know what you mean. And that's the same thing too. Like there are like the Disney fans out there, you know who you are, stay away from me. That buy everything that comes out. I'm kidding, but not really. You see a lot of these people, it's like it is like an intense fandom. It's like I every single movie that comes out, they gotta get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, there is. But
I have a good friend, and he just basically, just the way he thinks, he's just basically a giant kid. He just loves Disney. He loves the world. He's not as weird as like he has to buy everything that comes out, but he will at least make an effort to go and see the next Disney movie that comes out, and if he enjoys them, he'll buy them.
Speaking of Disney fans, extreme scary ones, do you think? First of all, are you aware there are gangs in Disneyland?
Okay,
it's not real gangs. It's like social meetups, but they wear like biker jackets. If you've ever gone, it's
funny.
It's crazy. Actually, some of them, I feel like there's like, shout out to any who might be listening. I know there was like the White Rabbits and stuff like that. Do you think Barley will get one?
He should. He really should.
Anyone who wants to create a Disney barley Disneyland gang, hit T up.
Yeah, and send me one of the best.
Why don't you start one? Get yourself a biker jacket.
I know.
Sew one onto the back. Start your.
I was already in that movie being like, they better have this vest available for purchase for movie tie-in merchandise.
And then I can give you the side eye because you've become one of those people.
One of those people.
One of those people. Get away from me. So, why did you have to get the seat next to me at the theater?
With my flashy denim vest with missing sleeves.
That's my own personal hell. It's like I'm going to a movie theater and then like it's a Disney movie and some Disney biker gang comes in and sits all around me. Every single and otherwise an empty theater, but every seat around me.
The first time, because a big movie for me when I was a kid was The Wizard of Oz. Not as big as Gone with the Wind, but The Wizard of Oz too. And so I'd never seen it in the big screen until I got to college when they re-released it for the 75th anniversary. So I went to the theater. I was all excited, and some girl was like, "I can recite every line in this movie," and I'm like, oh.
Good for you. Why don't you stop talking the movie?
And I just want to be like, unfortunately, because they have this whole thing about their science stadium, I just want to, can I move somewhere else, please? I don't want to be around this woman.
Tweet at me if you are a psychotic Disney biker gang fan. I don't know.
We love all of you.
Actually, we never even talked about that. What did you think of the movie? Was it worth the recommending?
Okay. So if a friend asked me,
that was a joke. We all know you liked the movie.
I loved the movie, and I think we guys talked. Last week we talked about The Invisible Man. And I said, it's not a movie I would necessarily go out and purchase. This is a movie I would go out and purchase and probably rewatch it several times. Or when it hits Disney Plus, if I haven't bought it yet, I'll probably be rewatching it.
I'm gonna have to incubate on it for a little while and think about it. But
you're not a chicken; you can't incubate.
I do recommend it. I think it's a great movie. I say Disney, keep Pixar weird. Just keep Portland weird. I'd love to see something.
Well, Austin in Texas has the same bumper sticker. Keep Austin. Let's have one that says keep Pixar weird.
Keep Pixar weird. I honestly hashtag keep Pixar weird. I'm very excited to see what Soul is going to be like because they've been very vague with that trailer, and that's my whole thing really is just I would like to see something super unique. And I was talking about making a bad movie on purpose. That's just an example, but Pixar, it's very honestly you could teach screenwriting.
Release a movie that we have to imagine is there.
Make it so that I'm speechless, dude. Anyway, hashtag keep Pixar weird, I guess. But
let us know what you guys thought of Onward. We recommend. So I guess you have a recommendation from Whiskey and Tea. Go see it. Of course, as always, form your own opinions. They all have value and worth, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
All right, and we heart you guys, and hope you have a great and safe rest of your day.
Wash your hands.
Please, and stay away from me in movie theaters. All right.
See you guys next time, y'all.
Bye.
The Whiskey and Sweet Tea Show is a production of Audra Christine and La Prince Laboratories. It is edited by Sophia Sabin and produced by Audra Christine, with original artwork by Ace Esparza. Follow us on Twitter at the WAST Show and tweet at us with any topics or movies you'd like us to discuss in the future.